Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hey, everyone. These little breaks in life can be just the emotional rejuvenation one needs. We've got Friday, our happy hour at Retro Metro. That's a great little kick off the weekend event, 4 to 6. At Retro Metro. You can come and go as you please. Also, the Ozark Empire Fair coming up, 88th annual, and your chance to win tickets to that at KSGF.com. Plus, July 25th, Everclear and Marcy Playground performing at the KY3 Grandstand. If you win tickets, you will get that as well. And you can do all of that at KSGF.com. And the world of RVing, Wilder RV, just north of Springfield on Highway 13, about 85 miles. It's a quick drive, nice drive, Clinton, Missouri. And I recommend, if you think that the world of RVing is outside of your tax bracket, you think, wow, that's for people who make more money than I do. Monthly payments with financing through our Wilder RV, a nice family-sized RV you can get for what it cost one night stay in a decent hotel. I think you may be surprised at how affordable it can be and what a getaway you can have, whether it's crisscrossing the country. Maybe you're not retired yet, but you can have it for retirement, or just to get away for the weekend from everything. That's Wilder RV. You can find them at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. And also wilderrv.com, and they have pricing, and they're fantastic. Very transparent. They don't lure you in with a low price and then add a bunch of fees on at the end. What you see is what you get. Wilder RV, some new polling data out, of course, continuing to not be good for President Joe Biden. Democrats, you've got different factions of Democrats. You have some that are saying he's got to go. This is elected and unelected Democrats. I mean, we're just... As this evolves from day to day, there doesn't really appear to be any momentum on one side over the other. While increasingly, there are Democrats, including now one sitting U.S. senator who is saying that he cannot win. On the other side, they're digging in just as deep. You had this meeting yesterday, and elected Democrats emerge from it with mixed messages. You have reporters outside that are like, well, what are you guys thinking? And many of the Democrats are like, we're all right behind him. And then you have some others that are saying, no, this is not settled. One Democrat member of Congress said, when asked, are you all on the same page? He said, we're not even in the same book. This is how fractured they are. Apparently, some elected Democrats actually crying. And listen, I'm not one of these folks that thinks that because a human being breaks down and cries, that means they're emotionally unstable. I think crying, just like laughing, is a human emotion that God gave us in order to cope with things in life that might be otherwise crippling emotionally. But I don't know, if you're making decisions regarding things that are potentially as significant as war, if you're crying over something like this, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It just makes me just a little bit uncomfortable, though the least of the worries we have. Speaking before NATO, Biden slurred through it yesterday. He had teleprompters he was locked on to pretty good. For Democrats, I think it was it probably didn't change much. Those that are calling for him to get out, continuing to call for him to get out. Those that say he should stay, feel confident that, he made it through one, only slurring words together. Incidentally, there's a report from a New York Times reporter acknowledging that what is it that he says he uses? Translation headset to understand what Biden says. Translation headset. These are headsets that I suppose oftentimes are used for people that do not speak English. You see this a lot at the United Nations, and it is a translation. And there may be other purposes for these as well. But point being is you've got this acknowledgement from the New York Times, who, of course, up until recently has been all in on Biden and accused Americans who have had questions about Biden's cognitive abilities as being QAnon right-wing nut jobs. And here you've got yet another New York Times reporter in this case said, oh, yeah, I have to use translation headsets just to understand what he's saying. Just amazing, these admissions that are coming out. And these are admissions, while this is not, of course, their position, but admissions at the same time that these are not journalists. These are cover-up artists for the Democrat Party. Do you see that Trump challenged Biden to a golf contest? As one may imagine, the Biden campaign has already refused, saying no, declined, better term to use, declined the invitation. Trump making the challenge public yesterday and offering $1 million should he lose to the charity of Biden's choosing. And, I mean, he obviously knew that, I'm sure. I mean, everyone knows Biden, there's no way. Biden seriously would not be able to, I believe, make it through even 9 holes of putt-putt golf. And I'm not saying that just to be mean. I think most reasonable people would recognize that it would not be fair to put him in that sort of position that would be probably a bit too much for him. So Trump knows what he's doing, and the Biden campaign has responded. We'll have that response coming up. So we've got a lot to talk about today. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line is 447-KSGF. Should you want to weigh in, participate, texting, of course, the vast majority of you participate that way, feel free to do so. If you have the KSGF app, it's very, very easy. You don't even have to remember the number because there's just a button that says text, and then that'll get you straight here. But should you not have the app, 447-KSGF is the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line number. Now news. The first alert forecast, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sunny today with a high near 86, clear 66 for a low tonight. Sunny tomorrow 90, and Friday mostly sunny, a high near 89. You had an additional thought on the Trump challenge?
I bet he challenged him outside of that time frame where Joe Biden is all there,
Yeah.
'cause they say that he's only there, that he's only functioning between, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I bet Trump was like...
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I bet Trump was like, hey, let's meet up at 6:30 p.m.
Yeah, 6:30, 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. Yeah.
Biden's like, nope.
Can't do it. Do you think Biden even knows he was challenged?
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. And he's like, we need to keep this one away from Joe. Because Joe would want to throw push-ups in between rounds. And Yep. Punch him out. All of the well, he's a real big talker. Old Joe is.
I'd actually like to see him try.
I know. Can you imagine? He would just slowly fall straight to the ground. Yeah, he's a real big talker. He's one of those. He's a big talker. Oh yeah, I'll take you on. I'll golf against you. Yeah, I'll take you. I'll push up this and I'll take you out back and I'll punch
you too.
Yeah, and then the minute, and that's typical bully behavior. The minute he gets called out on it, he doesn't even. He's got his people that are like, well, no, we're not going to do that. Oh, big talker Biden. That's what I'd start calling him if I were Donald Trump. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Okay. Welcome to the show, everyone. Great to have you here. Friday, we do have Happy Hour at Retro Metro. It's probably a good time to mention the following week, next week, we will have a whole variety of folks filling in,
That's
correct?
right. You decided to take a vacation this
Yeah,
season.
yeah, I did. It may seem, I don't know, I don't know how it seems to you. Like, gosh, it seems like he's gone a lot, but I end up every year not using.
You never take vacation.
All of my
Honestly, you
vacation.
never do.
It really, it's Sarah that forces me, and even at the beginning of the year, she's like, put it all on the calendar now. You do. This is your assignment before the end of the week. Have all of your vacation, and I never do it. I'm really bad about it. So I try to take off at least a week in the summer, and then around Christmas. Those are the two. I get more vacation time than I need. It's just honestly what it all boils down to. So at least this company doesn't force you to.
Yeah.
Our previous owners, they like made you. They're like, you have to. You absolutely have to take the time off that you are granted. And so, that was a whole different scenario. But point being, we've got some great guests lined up for you. Sarah does, anyhow. She lines all that stuff up. And so next week, you will be gifted with that. This Friday, I'm going to kick off my week off. And you can join me and Sarah at Retro Metro 4 to 6 in the afternoon. And it's come and go as you please. You don't have to be there at 4. You can get there at 5:45. In fact, there's one listener that when he does show up, it's usually about 5:45, 5:50, somewhere around there. I'm not sure if it's because he works or what the situation is. But point being is that you can arrive when you'd like and get something to eat if you'd like, or just drink, or just enjoy all of our company. All right, so some new polling has come out, and here is some of that coverage. This is from, I believe this is MSNBC, their guru on the Katie Tur Reports show, talking about the latest polling numbers for the presidential race.
Joining us now, NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki. So, Steve, there has been quite a bit of polling done in the 12 days since the debate. Can you show us if there's been any change in the numbers?
Yeah, there has been, and it becomes a question for Democrats. How do you interpret it? So what we're going to show you here, these are 8 polls. These 8 polls have all been conducted entirely after the debate, and these are the results from those polls. And then what you're seeing next to it in the right column here, same poll, their previous poll before the debate. So you're getting each poll compared what they found before, what they found after. A few of these, though, they were conducted back in the spring, so there's a bit of a time lapse on them. But I think you do see some clear patterns here. First of all, this one is obvious. Every poll since the debate has either had Donald Trump ahead of Joe Biden or a tie in one case. And most of these polls have shown some kind of a movement from toward Trump and away from Biden. Trump by 1 to Trump by 2, Biden by 2 to Trump by 2. Not all of them, but you see a pretty clear pattern. So I think what you see here is a Trump lead here. If you average these all together, his lead on average, Trump's is 3.4 points in the post-debate polling. In movement from the previous polls, about 2 points, about 1.5 points, 2 points of movement toward Trump since the debate. And it becomes a question for Democrats. How do you interpret that? I mean, some Democrats might make the case. You hear them making the case that, look, this is still close. The bottom hasn't fallen out. It's not like Biden's lost 10 points, 20 points, something clear, something definitive. Democrats could say, hey, this is something that can be recovered from. On the flip side, other Democrats, I think your previous guest just was making this point, would look at this and say the bottom line, Joe Biden does not lead in a single one of these polls. Joe Biden's lost ground in most of these polls. And we live in a world where the margins are very thin in elections, one way or the other. And a shift of a couple points may seem small, but it can be decisive. So some Democrats could look at these with just alarm, and others could look at them and say, it hasn't changed that much. It's a matter of interpretation.
Yeah. None of the interpretations that are really great for Biden, ranging from, well, it hasn't gotten worse to, yes, it has. That's what the Democrats are looking at. There's a report that the Democratic Bureau president in New York is saying that New York is now toss-up in his assessment or her assessment. I'm not sure if this is a male or female. The headline just Didn't reference gender. Just noting borough president, and saying that New York is up for grabs at this point. The Cook Political Report yesterday updated its projection for key swing states in the 2024 presidential race. The change is a signal. You know what, MSNBC, they were talking about just national polls here and all the different outlets that do the national polling. The Cook Political Report is something separate, and it's showing that crucial swing states they're shifting towards Trump. You have what are considered solid or have been considered solid blue states that have moved to just leaning blue. You have those that were leaning blue that are now considered to be toss-ups, and then some that were leaning red that are now considered to be in the red column or toss-ups red. So everything is shifting in the direction of Donald Trump. We're looking at, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada currently breaking for Trump with about 4 months until Election Day. New Hampshire, Minnesota, Nebraska, these have all moved into or from likely Democrat to only leaning Democrat. So point being here is that everything is moving away from Biden and in Trump's direction. Nothing is working for Biden at this point. And it's just, can you imagine going back to the moment in time when Democrats had made the decision to alter the course of our country and begin political persecution of political opposition? So, a whole new territory. And they did it because they believed it was worth it. Worth it to make sure that they were able to cling to power. And it was all built upon the premise that it would be the nail in Donald Trump's coffin. That changing, altering the course of history for our country and the direction of the country with political persecution of opposition would make it inevitable that Joe Biden would shuffle right into a second term. If you could go back to that moment and say, hey, I'm from the future. I'd like to show you a few news reports. I'd like to show you. Here's you talking to MSNBC about Joe Biden. This is, by the way, just weeks before your convention. Here's an editorial from the New York Times. Here's what is going on. They would, I think their minds would just blank out from shock and dismay and wonder 1,000 times over, how does that happen? Just to further blow the minds of Democrats in the past, be like, oh yeah, and by the way, you all were able to find a jury that convicted Trump, and you're running around calling him a convicted felon, and you had his mugshot taken in another jurisdiction. Everything you possibly could have ever dreamed. Everything that you possibly could have ever dreamed in your totalitarian hearts has come true, and this is what you will be dealing with in just a couple of years. People talk about these grand humanitarian efforts they would undertake if they had access to a time machine. I'd go back in time and this, and I'd go back. These are the things I would go back in time to do. Maybe it's petty. I don't know. But you just think about the arrogance, the pompous nature of the Democrat Party, and the mocking tone as they dismissed millions and millions and millions of Americans that were saying, something's wrong with this guy. Dismissing those Americans as QAnon supporters, Media outlets admitting, there was a CNN piece last week in which journalists admitted that the reason they were in denial over all of this is because they didn't want to feed into the right-wing media narrative. Didn't matter what the truth was. Didn't matter what the news was. That's irrelevant. And incidentally, I would really love to hear Republicans start questioning why it is that Democrats are talking about overturning the election. Biden's been elected the nominee. Every one of these states spent a lot of money, a lot of effort. I mean, heck, they even rigged some of the election so that Biden would get it. Or at least, not that they necessarily feared. Remember, RFK Jr. was running as a Democrat for a while. Of course, you had Jill Stein doing the same thing. Marianne Williamson, she dropped out, of course. No, I don't think Stein ever was running as a Democrat. But Marianne Williamson, congressman, whatever that Democrat was. So they began moving around the primaries. Some states, the Democrats canceling the primaries. Some states having the primaries but banning the other candidates. So they even rigged it just to make sure that Joe Biden would get the nomination. And now they're trying to overturn their own election. It almost sounds like some sort of interference in our democratic process. I love how they just openly talk about it as well, as if, well, you know, that's something we may have to do, completely overturn the election. For people that paint Donald Trump and currently trying to put people in prison for trying to overturn the presidential election while they're out there openly talking about overturning their own election for the nomination. Let's see, it's different. If you're a Democrat, you can do these things. If you're a Republican, at least when it came to Trump and his attorneys, they were arguing based off of what they felt were irregularities and perhaps illegalities when it came to the election. Democrats are just like, well, we've just changed our mind. Oopsie daisies. Can we just undo this election, just overturn it? Have another one. That's what they're talking about. Oh, we could have a little mini primary. We'll just make it up as we go along. The security of democracy in the hands of Democrats. Coming up, internal polling from the Democrats leaking out, showing that House Republicans are currently expected to flip as many as 20 seats. More Democrat panic. All that next. I'm Nick Reed. First Alert Forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. From Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sunny today, high near 86, 66 tonight for low sunshine, 90 tomorrow. Friday kicking off the weekend, mostly sunny, high of 89. Amber Rose is going to speak at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. Yeah. Many of you may not know Amber Rose. You weren't here when I played the rap video that she's in.
Mm-mm.
Maybe I should pull it up and play it again. She is. Well, I'll wait until the next segment. It's Trump Baby. She's in it. It's another rapper who put the song together, and it's similar to Ice Baby, but it's Trump Baby, and she's in the video. She may do some background vocals. I'm not sure, but we'll play that again coming up. She's sort of this. Well, she's a model, an artist, and a black gal who has crap tons of followers, influencer, and has really been vocal when it comes to women's rights issues. And so, as you can imagine, all of those little check marks makes her a Benedict Arnold to the left, because she's black and a woman, and for women's rights. And so people who fall into those categories are told you have to be a Democrat, otherwise you are none of those things. And so increasingly what we're seeing are individuals like her who are saying, you don't tell me what to do, you do not define me. Joe Biden does not define me as a black person. The Democrats do not define me as a woman. Democrats do not define me. I am an individual human being, and I have my own thoughts. And increasingly, we're seeing that within the black community. Panic sets in. Democrats' internal polling show GOP flipping 20 House seats. Now, this is why increasingly elected Democrats are coming out and calling on Joe Biden to step aside. If you notice, there is I'm sure just a complete coincidence. The people who are Democrats running for re-election that are in close races are not vocally supportive of Joe Biden. They are either calling on him to really think about this decision or calling on him to step out. When you hear about these Democrats that are coming together and making phone calls and trying to utilize their positions in order to convince Joe Biden to step aside, to drop out, these are all Democrats who are worried about their own reelections. Mark Caputo, a national political reporter for The Bulwark, wrote, "One Democratic insider tells me that members have been briefed on polling that shows House Democrats could lose as many as 20 seats. A source telling him we were supposed to win the House. House Democrats have not fared well since Biden's subpar debate performance against former President Donald Trump. Before House Democrats' Tuesday morning come to Jesus meeting about whether Biden should step down, some battleground Democrats held back actual tears." You did this. This is on full display. The total and complete lack of accountability that is instinctual amongst so many of these Democrats. They're always victims, even when they are the ones who dug their own hole. These are Democrats that have spent all of this time digging a hole, mocking anyone who did not believe in digging the hole, and now that they are falling into the hole, want the world to feel sorry for them. Want something magically to be done in order to fix this problem. Is this just not typical instinct? Typical behavior of the left? Create a problem and then play victim. Holding back literal tears. Oh, poor thing. One swing district Democrat described the meeting as intense. Another said Biden has got to step down. The same Democrat said there were actual tears for people and not for Biden. However, not all House Democrats agree with the swing district Democrats. One House Democrat said most of our caucus is still with him, meaning he'll stay in, which sucks for our country. Whether or not I have concerns is beside the point. He's going to be our nominee, and we all have to support him, said Representative Jerry Nadler. Stephen Cohen, Democrat, Tennessee, after the House Democrat meeting, was asked if all the reps were on the same page. Quote, "No, we're not even in the same book," he said. Monday night, one House Democrat admitted that Democrats were, quote, "folding all over the place and becoming resigned to Biden holding all the cards here and having no real say in the matter." No, you did have a real say. This is the thing. This is your say. You chose this. You had a process. You have a process. You made this decision. You encouraged everyone else who were voters within your party to make this decision. I'm getting very tired of these Democrats acting as if this is just some sort of unforeseen event coming out of left field that was so beyond their control. If only there was something we could do. You did this. You made this. This is you. You did this. It's like dealing with a 12 or 13-year-old or having to deal with somebody that is just sort of learning about responsibility, learning about consequences of one's actions. And I think all of this is, sadly, reflective of the culture within the Democrat Party in which these people are never held accountable for their own actions. Never. They're able to get away with everything, whether it is, violating subpoenas, ignoring subpoenas, violating laws. They're constantly used to being able to do things that if Republicans do them, they get nailed for it. If Republicans do it, they have to drop out of races. If Republicans do it, they get charged and potentially go to prison. And they know that they just are able to get away with everything that they want to get away with. And it's not just when it comes to legalities or scandals, but policy as well. They create policies that destroy the inner cities. They create policies that destroy the economy. They create policies that destroy the border. They create policies that destroy peace and order. They create policies that destroy peace in the Middle East. But they never, ever, ever are held accountable. Never. I mean, every once in a while a national election, but I mean, you think about how they run the inner cities into the ground, and there's nowhere that they have a greater stronghold in the inner cities. And so here they are, once again, they have created this nightmare. They did this. And now so many of them are like, well, what are we supposed to, you did this. And what is so just brilliant about it all is their answer is to overturn the election. Overturn the election in order to get rid of a man that refuses to loosen his grip on power. That's Joe Biden. This entire scenario is the scenario that they accuse Donald Trump of. Refusing to accept the outcome of an election, and a future in which if he gets elected president, when it's time for him to leave, he'll refuse to do so. What world are the Democrats in right now? Trying to figure out a way to overturn the election, their own, for the nomination, because they're dealing with a guy who refuses to leave when it's very clear that he should be, when it is his time to go. I don't believe there's ever been such overt behavior with such a clear outcome and a response to that outcome that better sums up the culture of the Democrat Party than all of this. But I do believe that anytime any Republican is asked about, well, what do you think Democrats should do? Do you think Joe Biden should this? Should Joe Biden do that? I'd say my number one concern is that Democrats are trying to overturn an election. The millions and millions and millions of Democrats who voted, this is the person they voted for. And to have a political party try to disenfranchise millions of these American voters by overturning the election? Boy, that doesn't seem very protective of democracy. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. All right, some of your Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line messages. Nick, I think all of this just guarantees the Democrats will cheat again this election cycle. They're painted in a corner. Another is saying, Nick, you're off by a decade. The Democrats are not acting like 13-year-olds are acting like 3-year-olds. Another review noting if Biden were up 5 points in the poll, the Democrats would still be lockstep behind him. So the only reason the panic is that they think that they might lose. What is the precedent to replace a candidate just because he is losing? And that is 100% true. I mean, all of this is they've known. This has been known for years. And slowly but surely, those Democrats who are trying to get him out are beginning to talk openly about this, or at least to to make it public, to make it be known that we've known about this for some time. The only difference is, yes, now it's biting them. And my father had dementia at the beginning. We would tell him why he had to stay with us due to his memory, and he'd get angry. So we quickly learned to lie to him, saying, "You're here to watch our son while we're at work." Later, when his memory was going so bad that he realized it, he got mad at us because we lied to him about his memory. And I'm just wondering if they've done the same to Joe. You're doing great, Joe. And now Joe's realizing that he's really not doing great in the polls and is pissed at everyone for lying to him or keeping things from him. I vaguely remember a story about a year ago or a year and a half ago where he blew up at his office staff screaming, "I am the GD president." Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but it's sad that Democrats have put us in the position to try to figure this out. Last week I played for you, and I'll play it again here. And there were a lot of you that had requested links to it, and it is a rap song. Amber Rose, who is maybe not known to you, but she's got a lot of followers. She's a model. She's an artist. She's a black woman who has come out in support of Donald Trump. In fact, it's announced she's going to be one of the speakers next week at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. And there was a song/video released last week, I believe it was, by Forgiato Blow. He is a rapper, and Amber Rose is in the video. She may do backup vocals as well. And here is that song, "Trump, Trump, Baby."
It's the middle. America, safe. America, safe. Baby. November 15th, we pray. Red pill pop this, swerving in the crumb. Republican boys, yes, keeping those red, white, and blue, make a nation. With a black, white, and brown. Democrat party gonna take your freedom. Indicting our president because they can't beat him. No tears, justice. This who fears? America first, be the victim. FJB, FJB. FJB, 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 FJB. Let's go bring this thing. Donald Trump, baby. America needs safe. America needs safe. Voted Trump, Trump, baby. November 5th, we going crazy. November 5th, we going crazy. Now I pledge allegiance to vote for Trump. There's a red wave coming, you gon' surf for what? Ain't got our Trump to take the devil away. Like Joe Biden up to go to kill you away. Your propaganda ain't gonna work on me. Just like you working for free and demand reparations from every idiot that voted for Joe Biden, boy, period. Period. Joe is the front. And the bloodbath and the Oval Office. The media is the enemy of the people. The Democrats and the fake news machine. FJB, 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 FJB. Let's go bring this thing. Donald Trump, baby. America needs safe. America needs safe. Voted Trump, Trump, baby. Trump. November 5th, we going crazy. November 5th, we going crazy.
I'm sure that will be played at the Republican National.
I love
the
that.
lyrics are great.
Love that. That needs to be his new walkout song whenever he does a rally.
The lyrics are really.
Yeah,
there's
they're
some
good.
great lyrics. I was just thinking about how part of our culture, Let's Go Brandon, has become that I would be interested to see polling and the difference between the number of people who know what it means versus the number of people who remember where it even came from. Because do you remember where it came from?
Wasn't it like a NASCAR?
It was some racing event, and people were chanting F Joe
Yeah.
Biden, and the reporter for whatever network it was claimed that they were chanting "Let's go Brandon"
Yeah, 'cause
for
it
one
wasn't
of the
for
drivers.
exactly, yeah.
And it was such a pathetic attempt by the media to cover for Joe Biden that it just became something that people it was dual purpose. One, it was the way to say F Joe Biden, but in a G-rated version. Let's go, Brandon. But at the same time, mocking the media in their continued pathetic attempt to cover up from Joe Biden, all in one nice little package. And the fact that I bet you by double digits, people know what it means, but don't even remember where it came from. And that just tells you how seeped into the culture that has become. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. They're just really the timing of everything is just so bad for Democrats. And at the same time, it allows for certain events to occur for Republicans. Perfect timing. Haley urges her convention delegates to support Donald Trump. Now, this was inevitable. I mean, of course, this is standard. Candidates that do not win enough delegates in order to win at the convention to get the nomination, they hold on to him for a while, and then at some point there's an announcement where they release the delegates, because the delegates are in most instances bound to the person that they are representing, unless they release them and they say, all right, you can vote for whomever you want, or in this case she's urging them to support Donald Trump, which is again obvious. But the fact that this happens while Democrats are just in an absolute tailspin in a hurricane that is filled with dumpsters that are on fire all at the same time. And it's just, you put this side by side, the unity of the Republican Party versus the disarray of the Democrats. Trump challenges Biden to a golf match, says he'll give $1 million to charity if Biden loses. This is audio yesterday at an event. I believe this was in Florida.
I'm also officially challenging Crooked Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here. On Doral Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world, one of the great courses of the world. And I will even give Joe Biden 10 strokes aside. 10 strokes, that's a lot. That means 20 strokes in case you don't play golf. I will give him 10 strokes aside, and if he wins, I will give the charity of his choice, any charity that he wants, $1 million. And I'll bet you he doesn't take the offer.
And he did not. Biden spokesperson James Singer fired back. Donald Trump hasn't been seen in public for 12 days. Well, that's sort of weird because his challenge was made in public at a rally. But nonetheless, claims, well, it's shocking that a false claim would come from the Biden campaign. Donald Trump hasn't been seen in public for 12 days. He's now inviting fictional serial killers to dinner. Do you know what that means?
No.
I don't know. I'm not sure but I do wonder if it's, I'm curious. We'll have to look up. What did Donald Trump say that is making them make that claim? Inviting fake serial killers to dinner. I bet whatever it was, it's funny. Teasing little Marco Rubio, praising Project 2025 architect Tom Homan, and challenging the president of the United States to golf. We challenge Donald Trump to create jobs, but he lost $3 million. We challenge, it's the same stupid stuff. All right, keep it up, guys. Keep it up. We challenge Donald Trump to follow the law, but he breaks it. We challenge Donald Trump to not destroy our country. Just on and on and on. Okay. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Trump should make it easy on Biden. Offer $1 million to charity of his choice if Biden can just carry his clubs for 18 holes. I mentioned the Project 2025. I believe it was yesterday. Was that yesterday? Or was that last week? Okay.
It was yesterday.
And how this is the Democrats' QAnon. And this is how Republicans need to frame it. Conspiracy theories. Just turn their tactics around on them. Project 2025 conspiracy theories by the Democrats. These grand, scary conspiracy theories. And I mentioned to you what's not in it. In fact, Project 2025, they've made a listing of many of the more common claims that are made that are just flat out not true. There aren't even, things that aren't even mentioned. Now, there are some things. Well, incidentally, there are some things that are like, yeah, that's true. Yes, we do believe that should be done. Now, the Project 2025 is Heritage Foundation. It's not anything to do with the Trump campaign. Not that it's not filled with Trump supporters, but it's not the Republican National Committee platform. But it's something that they are trying to create all these conspiracy theories about on the left that is going to do all these scary things. And there are some things in the listing, and we'll go over these later in the show, in which they're like, well, no, that's not true. This is taken out of context. But there are certain allegations made by the left that, well, it's going to do this, in which they're like, that subject matter isn't even mentioned anywhere. I mean, we're not even talking about it out of context. It's not even in here anywhere. People on the left, you would think this whole Biden thing would make people on the left do a self-check regarding their willingness to believe anything that they're told, as long as it makes Donald Trump look bad and their party look good. They've touched the stove, and they've burnt their hand pretty severely. The only aspect of the stove touching and hand burning that is unknown at this point is how severe the burns actually are. That will be determined come November. You would think that Democrats would stop touching the stove. And by that I mean, in this analogy, stop believing everything that they hear without checking it. After this willingness to believe everything that they hear from the media, everything they hear from elected Democrats regarding Biden, he's perfectly fit. He's more fit than everyone. You just think of the absurdity of the claims that they were making about the mental acuity of Joe Biden out there claiming that, understand that while according to numerous world leaders quoted in the Wall Street Journal for the past couple of years, they have known that something's wrong with Joe Biden. Karine Jean-Pierre is claiming, as well as other Democrats, that world leaders, you talk to them, and he just runs rings around them. Whenever Joe Biden is talking, all eyes from world leaders at these different meetings are on Joe Biden, intently waiting to hear what it is that he has to say. Now, of course, we know that arguably that behavior is true, or was occurring, but it wasn't because they were just so in awe of his intellectual gymnastics, but because they were worried or just in awe of how is this guy president of the United States, and how are they keeping this hidden? And all the time, and look at the mess that Democrats have gotten, not just themselves in, but the country in, and potentially the world, because of the complete leadership vacuum, the vulnerability that the world is in because of Joe Biden and the Democrats crafting this lie, the media crafting this lie, and you watch how so many voters are behaving regarding the Project 2025, and once again believing everything they're fed without verifying it. Why? Because it makes them feel good. It's like somebody who does drugs because it makes them feel good. They overdose. They almost die. They do die. They die, but they're brought back. And an outside observer would go, well, that's a wake-up call. I'm sure that they're going to not do drugs anymore, but they go right back to doing them. And that's what it is with the Democrats and this insatiable need to be fed information that just makes them feel good, regardless of its truth. And the weird thing is, and this is where people on the left are different from normal people, the things that make them feel good are horrible things. Like, they love to hear that women are going to die because they're forced to have their own babies. They love to hear that Donald Trump is going to be a dictator that throws journalists in prison and executes. They feed off of that. They love to hear about these horrible, awful things that are going to happen. And that's difficult for, I think, normal people to understand. But they do. And so they want to believe it. And it's what separates, I think, the intellectually curious, the emotionally stable from those who aren't. And it's this inability to recognize what they've done to themselves with all of the propaganda regarding Joe Biden and the mess they've created, and not to learn from that, not to say, maybe we should not believe everything that we're told at face value, as long as, it makes Trump look bad. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. News. First Alert Forecast, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Today, sunny 86 for a high, 66 for a low. Tonight, sunny 90 tomorrow, and Friday mostly sunny with a high near 89. Donald Trump yesterday in Florida at a rally challenging Joe Biden to a golf tournament, one-on-one, and Trump says, hey, if Biden wins, I'll donate $1 million to the charity of his choosing. The Biden campaign fired back. Of course, they're not going to, but they challenged Donald Trump to a number of things and referenced that Donald Trump is spending his time doing things like inviting fictional serial killers to dinner. And as I was reading the response, I thought, I don't know what that's in reference to, but I suspect it's reference to something that
I found the audio.
that Donald Trump said that was probably really funny.
Found the audio for you.
Should we play that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So this is what that apparently was in reference to.
They're looking out their children into the United States. They're looking out their mental institutions into the United States, our beautiful country. And now the prison populations all over the world are down. They don't want to report that. The mental institution population is down because they're taking people from insane asylums and from mental institution. You know what the difference is, right? An insane asylum is a mental institution on steroids. Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone ever seen the Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He's a wonderful man. He oftentimes would have a friend for dinner. Remember the last scene? Excuse me, I'm about to have a friend for dinner. Is this poor doctor walked by? I'm about to have a friend for dinner, but Hannibal Lecter. Congratulations, the late, great Hannibal Lecter. We have people that are being released into our country that we don't want in our country, and they're coming in totally unchecked, totally unvetted, and we can't let this happen. They're destroying our country, and we're sitting back, and we better damn well win this election, because if we don't, our country is going to be doomed.
All right, so I was right. It was something funny Trump said.
Now, the left media, USA Today, they said former President Donald Trump praises a fictional cannibal and murderer, one of the most evil characters in the history of cinema. So that's how it's being reported.
I mean, they just never, they never give up. I think that there is this instinct amongst normal Americans that at some point they would embarrass themselves into becoming actual journalists. Just quit all of this nonsense. But that's because, and this is what we do as human beings. We think, what would I do if I were in that situation? How would I, if I were exposed in such a manner, what would my reaction be? And normal, honest, ethical people would, you think I'd be humiliated, and I would do a gut check. I'd be like, I really need to better myself. But that's not how they think. That does not cross their minds. There isn't that dignity. There's not that sense of attempting to be better. And so, yeah, I think in the context of the media all of a sudden admitting that something's wrong with Joe Biden, that people think, okay, well, now maybe they will stop with their over-the-board hysterics that are clearly untrue propaganda pieces because it's blown up in their face and they've been once again exposed as nothing other than lapdogs of the Biden administration, but they don't think that way. I mean, they're just going to continue on. And, you know, it's unfortunate because a lot of the things that Donald Trump said, I mean, they're just funny. You know, and the left also, it demonstrates they have no sense of humor whatsoever. None. I mean, just the inability to enjoy life and laugh about things that are funny. Coming up, going to play audio. Dr. Tom Pitts, who is a Parkinson's expert from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center and visited the White House 8 times in the last 8 months, was on NBC News Now. Now, this is a guy that we kept hearing about, right? We're like, oh, this expert, he's visited there. And the White House was like, oh, no, that's not what he was doing. He was there because of thousands of members of the military that are at the White House, and he's there to help those individuals. Now, my first thought was, I fully recognize I do not understand the full inner workings of the White House, but I thought that just doesn't seem right that there are thousands of military personnel there that have Parkinson's issues that need to be addressed. It just seemed odd. Well, that scenario itself turned out to be a lie. I believe the AP even exposed this, saying, no, that's not true. The troops that they're referencing here are not at the White House. They're at a totally different location. So what they were trying to do is conflate things. But this guy is on NBC Newsroom, and he's asked about, have you even seen anything that gives you a red flag? This guy who fully and openly says, listen, I'm a Democrat. And he lays it all out, and essentially he says, I could have diagnosed him across the mall. This is so obvious that something is wrong with this guy. That audio next. I'm Nick Reed. Dr. Tom Pitts appeared on NBC News Now to discuss the conversation swirling about a Parkinson's expert. He's not the Parkinson's expert, as I mentioned earlier. He's there because of this conversation. The White House is being very cagey about it and misleading people as to why he was there. But they've got this guy, I guess, on call at NBC. And so they bring him in. And you can tell by the tone of it that the NBC News Now host did not necessarily expect this particular expert on Parkinson's to be as stark as he was in his analysis of Biden. And by the way, I want to note something. And you'll hear it to some degree in this. They bring on oftentimes these experts, and then when the experts say what they don't want them to say necessarily, they point out, well, now, I mean, you can't really diagnose him without actually, well, then why'd you have him on in the first place? They have them on in order to try and essentially dismiss some of the concerns. But whenever they say, no, there's clearly a problem here, they well, I mean, you haven't examined him. And as someone who, these things are much more complicated than just, observing and then diagnosing. Well, then why did you have them on? Here's the analysis on NBC yesterday of Dr. Tom Pitts, expert in Parkinson's.
Have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah. I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemmonode dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold, hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Here are some of the symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had him up there on the screen. If we can put him back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks. Sometimes it's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that, so little steps. Loss of arm swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arms. And end block turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, hey, President Biden, he wouldn't go like this. So, yeah.
But I also know, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I mean, I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
Right,
but it's so clinic. There's very little other. And I'm a Democrat. I always say about this.
Right.
It's just like this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives who have gone through neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
It's early on. If you're just presented with like hallucinations, that could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms,
right?
Slow movement, rigidity, mass facies, hypophonia. I mean, if a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test, they'd be remediated.
So let me ask you, you're a Democrat, you're a doctor. You sound like you're frustrated with what the White House is saying.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because, I'm an American before everything. And I look at it and say, when I used to see Russia, Soviet Union, North Korea, when they just make outrageous things, like when North Korea can't keep the lights on and they say, it was some faulty power thing. I kind of hate that kind of stuff. They had 4 years. My own party had 4 years to find, this was a wreck in slow motion. And they had 4 years to find, out of 350 Americans, one person that could take the place. And here we are the day before school trying to do the homework and replace a guy who's got a neurodegenerative disease.
Dr.
There's a lot about this that we can take from. One, I'm sure you noticed the tone here of the anchor at NBC trying to sort of pull this back a little bit. Well, now he overcame a stutter. I mean, it could be, no. Well, now, Parkinson's, though, I mean, I've been told it's real hard to diagnose. You can't just diagnose it. He's like, well, early on, but when it gets this advanced, yeah, I could have done it he said if a first-year medical student wasn't able to diagnose this at first glance, they would not make it. I also thought it was very telling and sad that the anchor openly says, you're a Democrat. Why are you talking about? He's asking a doctor who is charged with providing his professional medical opinion on this show why he's doing so, given that he's a Democrat. Like, don't you understand? I mean, the answer should be because that's why you have me here. His answer actually was political, said essentially because he's mad. Not because, I'm a doctor. Not because it's the truth. But he fully acknowledges when asked, why on earth are you giving your expert medical opinion honestly here when you are also a Democrat? And he's like, because I'm mad about this. They've been hiding this or trying to hide this. Soviet-style psyop. It's exactly true. Exactly true. That's what we're dealing with in this country today, and the media is part of that. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk a text line 447 KSGF. Coming up Friday, Retro Metro 4 to 6. We have our happy hour, traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. First Alert Forecast, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. From Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sunny 86 for a high today, clear 66 for a low tonight. Sunny, high near 90 tomorrow. Friday, mostly sunny, a high near 89. And Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Well, I was listening to Dana on my way home yesterday, and she had a fill-in guest, but she had pre-recorded some of her endorsements. And one thing that she had said during her endorsement was that she wished that everyone was as comfortable with a firearm as she was. And you know, it can be pretty difficult to get to that level, especially if you didn't grow up around firearms. Now, if you are wanting to take that first step, maybe you are wanting to purchase your first ever firearm, the first step is finding a great gun shop to help you with that purchase. And that is why I strongly recommend Quick Draw Gun in Monette. It doesn't matter if you grew up around firearms or this is the first time that you are stepping into a gun shop. Brad and his team, they are going to get on your level of expertise to help make that right purchase for you. And they're not pushy either, so you don't have to worry about that. They are going to, they'll ask you a few questions, they'll get to know you, and then they will recommend a couple of options. It is as simple as that. So if you are planning to make a trip down there, you can find all of the contact information for Quick Draw Gun in Monette, plus shop hours, store location, all of that is going to be housed under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
So we played audio before the traffic update. NBC News Now had Dr. Tom Pitts. He is an expert when it comes to Parkinson's from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And he stated something's clearly wrong with Joe Biden. This is not a stuttering issue. And he is so advanced. Yes, you can make a diagnosis to some degree that there is something neurologically wrong with this person from, as he said, across them all. He's also a Democrat. And he noted that, well, he was asked, you're a Democrat, you're a doctor, you sound like you're frustrated with what the White House is saying. Why? And he noted that, he said, well, because I'm an American before everything, and I look at it and I say, I used to see Russia, Soviet Union, North Korea, when they just make outrageous things, you know, like when North Korea can't keep the lights on, they say, oh, it was some faulty power thing. I kind of hate that kind of stuff. They had 4 years. My own party had 4 years, you know. This was a wreck in slow motion, and they had 4 years to find it out of 350 million Americans. One person that could take the place, and here we are, the day before school, trying to do the homework and replace a guy who's got a neurodegenerative disease. And so he notes that what the Democrats are doing in this country, with the help of the media, is they've turned this into the Soviet Union and North Korea. And this guy's a Democrat. Now, I do say, when he says that, you know, hey, we had 4 years out of 350 million Americans to find one person that could potentially take his place. Well, there were a couple of people. And Democrat voters had the option. Joe Biden won overwhelmingly. This, again, is the inability of Democrats to take responsibility for their choices. You had options. Now, there were some states where the Democrats took away the options. They either canceled the elections or they only allowed Joe Biden, and they blocked other Democrats from challenging him in those. But there were enough states that had options on the ballots to make a difference. So the choice was there. Well, we didn't know. Well, a lot of us did. That's on you. Your poor judgment does not constitute a declaration that you had no choice. Your poor judgment does not constitute this narrative that this was absolutely inevitable and the Democrat voters had absolutely no choice whatsoever. Yes, you did. You just had very bad judgment. You had very bad judgment. And largely the judgment wasn't so much believing that Joe Biden was the best option for the Democrats, but just being the lapdogs, the obedient lapdogs that do whatever the party tells you. And regardless of what is before your very eyes, do what you're told. And that is pick Joe Biden. Well, but media that I watch, they weren't showing this stuff. Maybe you should get outside your bubble. Maybe you should stop listening to so-called media outlets that simply are an echo chamber, regurgitating information that you want to hear, that makes you feel good. I go back because it was such an accurate illustration of the problem that Democrat voters have and the Democrat media has when MSNBC had announced that they were hiring former RNC chairperson Ronna McDaniel in order to give an outside perspective. And they all pitched a fit. No, because what she says, it's not true. We can't have her lies on air. Some of the lies, of course, that they were afraid of is that she might claim Joe Biden has cognitive issues. You know, things that turn out to be true. When you choose to live in an echo chamber, when you choose to only listen to people who tell you what you want to hear, then you find yourself oftentimes in this very situation. When you will watch news networks that openly have hosts threaten to boycott one of the new hires because they offer a different perspective, to the point that the network then fires that person so that there is only one perspective, this is what you end up with. And you make the choice to watch those networks. You make the choice to block out all other information. You cannot then say, well, we didn't know. You chose not to know. There's a very unusual event that took place that, to me, it's George Stephanopoulos. TMZ got video of some apparently random person who was walking down the streets of New York, and lo and behold, George Stephanopoulos is standing there. And they happen to be secretly recording. Apparently, this is how it appears. It seems, based off the footage, one of these situations in which perhaps they have the phone in their front pocket or they're holding it, but they are attempting to not reveal the fact that they're recording. And they go up to George Stephanopoulos. Apparently, this is the way that it all appears to play out. Total stranger to George Stephanopoulos, and asks him what he really thinks about Biden and whether or not he thinks he should step down. And George Stephanopoulos, not knowing this random person, says to him, "Oh, I don't think that he'll last 4 years if he's elected." And then the video gets to TMZ. Now, George Stephanopoulos has made a statement. It was posted on TMZ last night, 6:28, saying, "Earlier today, I responded to a question from a passerby I shouldn't have." An ABC spokesperson telling TMZ, George expressed his own point of view and not the position of ABC News. Now, this all seems very strange to me. We're going to take a break and then talk about it. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447-KSGF. Also at KSGF.com, you can get signed up for your chance to win tickets to the 88th Annual Ozark Empire Fair going on July 25th and August 3rd. And if you do win tickets from us, you will also get tickets to see Everclear and Marcy Playground live at the KY3 Grandstand. That will be July 25th. Your chance to win at KSGF.com. There's this very strange scenario that played out involving George Stephanopoulos. George Stephanopoulos, of course, sat down, interviewed Joe Biden last Friday. Didn't help. TMZ, which is largely entertainment stuff. You know, they've got these folks that work for TMZ. They go around and they use cell phones, it seems like, largely, and they'll Denzel Washington's leaving the airport, and they'll ask him questions, and it's gossip stuff. TMZ, by the way, it stands for 3 Mile Zone, I think, and that is reference, if I remember correctly, around like the studios where the movies were made, and I don't know if this is still the case or not, but the people who were working on the movies were given vouchers, I think, for meals that were a 3 mile radius around where it was that they were working. And so it was called the 3 Mile Zone, TMZ. And that's where that term comes from, if I remember correctly. Just fun fact. So they write post yesterday. George Stephanopoulos just made a stunning comment on the street of New York, telling a pedestrian he thinks President Joe Biden does not think, rather, President Joe Biden can serve out another full term. The Good Morning America anchor was out and about Tuesday afternoon on Fifth Avenue wearing workout clothes when the pedestrian approached him and asked, quote, "Do you think Biden should step down? You've talked to him more than anybody else has lately." George's response, quote, "I don't think he can serve 4 more years." The pedestrian didn't have his phone pointed at George when the ABC News journalist gave his answer. The phone was pointed at the sidewalk, but it's clearly George's distinctive voice that you're hearing. George's comment is telling, given he had an exclusive sit-down with the president just 4 days ago. George pressed Biden on his mental acuity and his dismal debate performance outside the White House bubble. George has spent more one-on-one time with the president than just about anyone else. Stephanopoulos, who had strong ties to the Democrat Party, well, he worked for the Clintons, has been measured but tough in reporting on the post-debate fallout. One of the most interesting moments in the interview when George asked Biden how he'd feel the day after the election if he lost to Trump. The president answered he'd feel okay as long as he gave it his all. Well, actually, he said, as long as I did my goodest. There is a follow-up, 6:28 p.m., last night. George Stephanopoulos tells TMZ, quote, "Earlier today I responded to a question from a passerby I shouldn't have." An ABC spokesperson tells TMZ George expressed his own point of view and not the position of ABC News. Now, this whole thing just seems odd to me. That you've got George Stephanopoulos, he's walking the streets of New York, which that's not odd. Then some individual, it's a perfect stranger to him, walks up to him, happens to be recording, and asks him a question that if you're George Stephanopoulos, you have to know is going to make you news. You have to know this. You just interviewed him. You are one of the faces of the mainstream media. The dividing lines are being called here. And you tell somebody that you have no idea who they are something that clearly is going to make headlines regarding Biden. You tell this guy, I've got the audio, I'd play it for you, but you can't really hear Stephanopoulos very well at all. It's because of the street noise and everything else. And you tell this random individual that comes up to you, "Oh yeah, I don't think he can't serve 4 more years." Now, George Stephanopoulos is not naive to his impact. He's not naive to, let's be honest, the historical component to this, and the fact that Lyndon Johnson decided to drop out when it was that he realized that he lost the support of Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite, who was the face of news on one of the major networks. And Lyndon Johnson making the comment, "If I've lost Walter Cronkite, I've lost America," or something to that. And that is what is said to have been the deciding factor, the wake-up call, the epiphany, if you will, for Lyndon Johnson, that if I've lost Walter Cronkite, the face of a major network, then I can't win this thing. I got to get out of it. And it wasn't long after that he announced that he wasn't, of course, he wasn't going to seek nor accept the nomination. Of course, things are too far along. You cannot tell me that, and there have not been, he is the face of a network. Of course, he doesn't have anywhere near the prestige or respect that a Walter Cronkite did. I'm sure that he probably thinks he does. But that here he is in this position, and he tells somebody who walks up on him in a world in which everyone has cell phones, and people secretly record people all the time, and he just without even appearing to pause to think about it or to act uncomfortable in answering it, declare that he has no confidence that Joe Biden, even if he is elected, can even serve out his entire second term. I'm not fully sold necessarily on the idea that this was set up. But it just seems like such a stupid amateur hour move for George Stephanopoulos to make. How stupid. Knowing full well the implications that it could have. Making yourself part of this, making yourself the story. He has to know it's going to bring comparisons of Walter Cronkite. And the recognition of lost confidence from one of the faces of the media that LBJ had in deciding to stop. He has to understand those implications. Now, so what are the different scenarios here? I mean, maybe this was set up. Stephanopoulos set this up in order to try. And, Stephanopoulos, arguably Clinton camp. Individuals that supposedly are on the side of getting Biden out of there. Of course, we all know Hillary Clinton. I think it'd be naive to believe that she doesn't, in the back of her mind, think of some dream scenario in which she somehow ends up back in the White House. So, is it conceivable that there's some scenario in which Stephanopoulos, okay, as an American, yes, maybe it's unethical, but there's so much at stake here. Convince himself that he's some sort of lone warrior that has the opportunity in his position to alter the outcome for the better of the country and set something like this up. You can't put anything past these people. They're dishonest and they're activists. Or was it just an absolute amateur hour bonehead move in which one of the top faces of media gets approached by a totally random stranger on the street and decides to make such a massive declaration to somebody that clearly in a day and age where people are recording everything is most likely going to get out? I don't know. But it just seems awfully odd to me the way that all that played out. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Well, we got a happy hour this Friday at Retro Metro 4 to 6. If you haven't been there for lunch, it's a great place. In fact, we have lunch bunch there today. News at 60. I'm Nick Reed. The New York Times chief White House correspondent admitted to using translation headsets to help decipher what President Biden says during public speaking events after a series of high-profile verbal mishaps. Concerns raised about cognitive abilities, so forth. Opinion columnist Maureen Dowd penned a piece, Joe Biden in the goodest bunker ever, that continue to put a spotlight on the president's articulation issues, offering a tidbit about the trick her colleague, Chief White House correspondent Peter Baker, uses to help understand Biden. Quote, the Times Chief White House correspondent Peter Baker told me he has started using translation headsets on overseas trips, even when he's 20 feet away from the president, because they offer a magnified volume when Biden starts to muffle. Translation headsets can also interpret what someone speaking another language is saying in real time, but the English-speaking Baker uses them to better understand Biden in their shared native language. He confirmed that it was true, but declined further comment. What she wrote is all I have on that, Baker told Fox News Digital when asked to elaborate. It's amazing, these little tidbits of information that the media that's supposed to be a tool utilized on behalf of the American people to inform us the truth as to what is going on when it's reporting on government. It's not supposed to be a newsletter from the government to the American people. I had a relative who is no longer alive, but he was a union guy. And I remember once seeing it was a newspaper of his that was produced by the union. And it was made to look like a newspaper, but it was pro-union. Everything was through the lens of pro-union. And, it's obvious that's what it was. It's what it was supposed to be. The media is not supposed to function in that way for one political party, for the establishment. They are not supposed to be the newsletter that informs us what it is that the establishment wants us to know. It's supposed to be on our side. They are supposed to be the watchful eye on our behalf to tell us here's what's really going on, whether the people in charge want us to know about it or not. That, of course, is not what is occurring. And it's pretty amazing to me that unapologetically, it's not really amazing, but it's sad, that unapologetically, so many of these people in media are fully exposing that they have been working on behalf of the government, reporting on things in a way that the Biden administration and Democrats want us to see. And it's because they share the same goal. They're all on the same team here. And that they don't seem ashamed. Oh, yeah, we've known for some time. Oh, yeah, for New York Times where he wears translation headphones just trying to understand what Biden's saying. He's so incoherent. These are people that just weeks ago were telling us that he's just fine. Anyone who says otherwise is right-wing lunatic. It's remarkably sad. Remarkably sad that on the whole, our media in this country cannot be trusted to report to us what is going on. They are essentially the information ministry. No different than as the guest on NBC, a Democrat doctor, described it yesterday. It's like watching how things are dealt with in the Soviet Union or the past Soviet Union or North Korea, where the media just tells the people what it is that the establishment wants them to know. Going to have a look at the weather here in just a moment. Pretty consistent. It's going to be sunny for the next several days and relatively hot. First, the latest news update. The First Alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. From Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sunshine 86 for a high today, 66 tonight. Sunny, high near 90 tomorrow. Friday mostly sunny with a high near 89. I tell you, you got to give credit to some degree to some of these people in the media and their willingness to cling until the bitter end. Newsweek, Donald Trump suffers triple polling blow in battleground state. Well, this sounds desperately bad. A massive blow to the Trump campaign. According to this polling, the devastating news for the Trump campaign is that Biden has increased his share of the vote by 0.9%. So, nowhere close to outside the margin of error. A state in which Trump is still ahead by 3.5 percentage points. According to this poll, it is let's see, a survey. I don't know which survey it is. In Michigan, Biden has increased his vote share by 0.8%, and North Carolina increased his vote share by 0.8%, with Donald Trump still ahead by 4 points. So that is, according to Newsweek, that is a triple polling blow to Donald Trump. Uh-oh, he's in trouble now. What desperate people will do. Now listen to this weird story that is easily, with just a little bit of common sense and math, proven to be either completely false or a demonstration of the hysteria of the Democrats. Report, pregnant House Democrat openly contemplates aborting her own child. Now that, in and of itself, no surprise. Even some animals will, at times, kill their own young. Democrats met at the Democrat National Committee headquarters on Tuesday to reduce leaks while discussing who they should support for president after Joe Biden's terrible debate performance. Despite the precaution, some lawmakers leaked some of the contents to the media, characterizing the huddle as a funeral with a significant amount of frustration and sadness. One such leaked remark allegedly came from a pregnant House Democrat who, during the meeting, allegedly openly contemplating killing her own unborn child. This, according to notice, without providing the name of the lawmaker. The lawmaker noted that she is over 40 and could face complications, and appeared to allude that she might not be able to obtain an abortion later in the pregnancy should former President Donald Trump be elected, according to the report. Reporters Riley Rogerson and Reese Gorman wrote, And she said that being pregnant over the age of 40 means she's at a higher risk of health complications. She noted she currently lives in a state where she has the power to make certain choices about her health and her child. But according to 3 members who relayed the anecdote, she said that if Trump wins, she may not have that ability. One of the unnamed members who spoke to the outlet called the pregnant lawmaker's comments super powerful. So super powerful. That's how much she hates Trump. She might have to kill her own baby. Now let's just do some math on this, shall we? If Trump is elected president, he'll be sworn in January. It's July, August, September, October, November, December, January. So that's 6 months. Now let's just assume that she's, I don't know, just a month. A month along, so that's 7. That means that Donald Trump and Congress would have to do something that nobody plans on doing, and within 2 months, pass a national ban on abortion and not have any judge anywhere put any sort of injunction on it. Any normal person who has even minimal brain power knows that that timeline does not add up. That there is no way conceivable, even if Trump wanted to do it, and I'm telling you now, there is not going to be any sort of, from a federal level, any sort of abortion movement. Trump dealt with that his first term, as he said he was going to. And as the Democrats like to say, listen to Trump. When Trump says something, you should listen to him. He said that he was going to appoint Supreme Court justices that might overturn Roe. He did that. Now what is he saying? He's saying, hey, this thing now, it's a state issue. It doesn't have anything to do with me. So let's listen to him. Now think about this for a moment. So here you have, and again, I don't know how much of it's all hysteria. A woman who's talking about how she's upset she might not be able to kill her own child if Trump gets elected president because of a timeline that does not even make sense. Does not even make sense. It's an impossibility that this would happen. But aside from that, if you are so worried about it, why don't you have an abortion now? You can. And if you don't have any problem killing your own child, what's the difference? Just do it now. Oh, it's so super powerful. Oh, why? Nothing about it is real. I'm not saying the scenario didn't have real, but the concern, it's not based in any sort of reality. These people are nuts. They are fully, truly, genuinely nuts. Is it any wonder that they've gotten themselves and this entire country into this nightmare scenario that we're in? Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, from helping us buy a lot to build our house and our dream HOA to selling a house that we made so many great memories in. Emily was amazing to work with from start to finish. This was a 2+ year process. Emily made it such an easy one. She knows the market inside out, guided us through the entire process. This is another response from someone who utilized Emily's services. Emily sold our house for us this spring. She arrived at the very first appointment on time with documentation and recommended pricing and a marketing plan ready to go. It was as easy as pulling a trigger. We had a good offer the first day. She continued to navigate us through the rest of the process. She had people who fixed the items their inspector found, and to my surprise, was principled enough to advise the inspector that he was actually wrong on a couple. Emily could not be more personable or easy to talk to. That's what you get when it comes to selling a home, buying a home. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Representative Ted Lieu redirects attention to Trump-Epstein connection after Democrats' chaotic media cycle. This story in the Washington Examiner. Oh, nice try. It is almost sad. It is. I've never in my lifetime seen the Democrats in such total disarray, and it is all of their complete and total making. They did this to themselves. Yesterday, Representative Ted Lieu, California, touted court filings alleging Trump flew with, exchanged phone calls, and took numerous photos with Epstein. The conference came. He held a press conference about this. The press conference came as the Biden White House struggles to shut down inter-party squabbling surrounding concerns about the president's mental acuity. A spokesman for the Trump campaign called Lieu's comments part of his Trump derangement syndrome. Quote, Ted is a total degenerate and loser who continues to beclown himself, Stephen Chung told the Washington Examiner on Tuesday. He has let Trump derangement syndrome rot his brain, and instead of getting the proper care he so desperately needs, he allowed himself to be the laughingstock of all of his colleagues who secretly joke about his glaring shortcomings. Now, here's the thing about, and listen, the Democrats have tried to excuse their massive connections to Epstein by saying, here's a picture of Donald Trump with him. Donald Trump knew him. As if somehow that makes it okay. Donald Trump is the only person that anyone has been able to identify who, well before Jeffrey Epstein became a known name because of all of the information that we've learned regarding sex trafficking of kids and offering them up to be raped by powerful people, which generally those who end up being accused are Democrats. Donald Trump was the one person that has been identified before all of it became public who banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago because of complaints about the way that he treated some of his staffers who were younger girls. Banned him. Before it was a popular thing to do. When the Clintons were still inviting Epstein to Chelsea's wedding, when you had all of these Democrats still palling around, visiting his island, Trump's like, nope, get him out of here. I got young staffers that say he's creeping them out. He's being creepy, get him out. He's banned from here. Well before it was popular to distance oneself from Jeffrey Epstein. And if Democrats want to claim that, I mean, listen, when you are somebody like Donald Trump, people are always wanting to get pictures with you. Yes, you're going to have phone calls with people that you don't have any other connection with other than, in fact, I would imagine that when you are of a status of Donald Trump, a majority of the phone calls that people get with you don't necessarily, it's not a phone call you wanted to take, but it's, somebody wants something and you agree to take the phone call because, for whatever reasons. But let's say for a moment that that isn't the case and that Donald Trump really was friends with Epstein. I think arguably that would make it even more impressive that he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago and cut off ties with him after he had staffers complain about his behavior. It's one thing to boot somebody that you don't have a connection to from Mar-a-Lago, which, by the way, is going to be a humiliating thing to somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, who's accustomed to being able to do whatever he wants. He's accustomed to hanging out in, at least on Democrat side, these political circles. He's accustomed to feeling like he's the one in charge, to go through the humiliation of being told, get your stuff out of your room, you're out of here. You're no longer allowed here. The fact that Trump did it, even if he didn't have any sort of personal connections with Epstein, but if he did, that's even more admirable. So anytime that the Democrats loved, they try to find these, these very thin connections, which I suppose that's supposed to mean it's okay that Democrats have done what they've done, or at least what they've been accused of doing with children. But just remember that there is no one that I'm aware of that has ever been publicly identified of giving Jeffrey Epstein the boot when he was still the popular guy that he was, other than Donald Trump. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. First Alert Forecast, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. From Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sunshine 86 for a high today, 66 tonight for a low. Sunny 90 tomorrow, 89 with sunshine on Friday. And Friday we will be having our happy hour at Retro Metro from 4 to 6 in the afternoon. So stop on by if you're finishing up work, heading home, kick off the weekend with us, or maybe you don't work, you're retired. Maybe you're just rich. You don't have to work. Whatever it is, we'd love for you to swing by and join us. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey joins us this morning. Of course, it just seems as if weekly there are new developments regarding lawsuits, potential lawsuits, Supreme Court findings, and so forth. I appreciate you being with us. And I want to ask about a couple of different things that we may have spoken with you in the past, but just to get updates on, and I know we've at least talked about on the show, whether it was with you or not, regarding this suit against New York for election interference. Tell us about that and where things stand.
Yeah, Nick. Well, first, thanks for having me on and covering this important issue. Look, this is all about protecting Missouri's sovereign interest in participating in a national election on equal footing with other states. We can't let a rogue prosecutor and collusive judiciary in the state of New York hijack this election. This kind of lawfare is injecting poison into our democratic process. The goal here by the prosecutor and the judge was never to obtain a legally valid conviction against President Trump. We know the process is replete with ethical violations, conflicts of interest, and certainly constitutional violations. The goal was always to take President Trump off the campaign trail, tether him to a courtroom in Manhattan, and eventually sentence him to prison or probation, and silence him in violation of the First Amendment. Remember, the First Amendment protects not only the speaker's right to say but listeners' rights to hear, and that includes voters here in Missouri in the heat of a campaign in the most consequential presidential election in this nation's history. And so the state of Missouri is fighting back, and we're the first state to do so.
So what does that look like? I mean, in terms of timelines, and I know some of this is so unpredictable, but what are the potential scenarios as this plays out? What could happen?
Well, this is an original action at the United States Supreme Court. The founders contemplated that there would be disputes amongst the states, and they codified a methodology by which we could redress those grievances in Article 3, Section 2 of the United States Constitution. And so the case has been filed at the United States Supreme Court, and just yesterday it was docketed. We anticipate that by the end of the week or early next week, the court will order a responsive briefing from the state of New York, and then we'll get a chance to reply to whatever New York says, and the process will play out over the next week or two. I think it's entirely possible that the court sits on the case until the sentencing in the New York trial court, because what we're asking for, first of all, this case needs to be dismissed. And I think the immunity decision proves that. I think the constitutional and legal errors in the case prove that. But then, secondly, to the extent it's not dismissed and the court persists in sentencing President Trump, the considerations in our lawsuit, the grievances we seek to redress, those become heightened after the sentencing in September.
One of the other battles that we've been fighting, your office have been fighting, and it was of great disappointment, the Supreme Court, regarding their opinion on free speech and whether or not the Biden administration has, or the government, I suppose, has the right to censor Americans, their free speech, and use their power in order to essentially force, if you will, or pressure private entities to, on their behalf, censor free speech. This, of course, coming from what so many Americans, whether it was the election, Hunter Biden laptop, COVID discussions on social media sites, and the Supreme Court handed down a ruling that many people said, well, this is just the death of the First Amendment, and already the Biden administration apparently is trying to utilize their finding in order to bolster their claims that they have the right to remove RFK Jr.'s comments on social media sites as well. So they are certainly apparently taking this and running with it as a weapon against the American people to violate their free speech. What were your thoughts on that finding? What are the next steps, if there are any?
Well, the fight for the First Amendment goes on. Remember, we obtained preliminary discovery that demonstrated, after 20,000 pages of documents and numerous depositions, that the government was coercing big tech social media companies into silencing American voices in violation of our right to free speech. Now, what the court found, based on preliminary discovery that obtained a preliminary injunction, was that the censorship happened. The government absolutely coerced big tech social media and violated the First Amendment, but the court found that our evidence was limited to the years 2020 and 2021 and remanded the case back down to the trial court and ordered us to commence merits discovery. Merits discovery is a broader tool than preliminary discovery. So we have carte blanche now to continue to root out this vast censorship enterprise that we know has grown since the case has been sitting on the Supreme Court docket for the last year. So the fight goes on, and we're not going to give up in our quest to secure Americans' right to free speech on big tech.
We're talking with Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey this morning. One of the other battles that we've been fighting here in Missouri has to do with kids that oftentimes have emotional issues. Sometimes they're autistic, sometimes they are victims of sexual abuse, and when they seek out help for their problems, counseling, they end up in the hands of people who convince them that they should get sex change operations, and unfortunately there are people who will carry out these experimental Frankenstein-type operations. And this is something that was, according to a pro-transgender activist, whistleblower, something that was happening at St. Louis Children's Hospital. And I know you have been working to try and stop this horrific form of child abuse. And I guess there was a ruling that came down just last week that essentially is blocking access to the health records that would help find out what is actually or what has been going on. Tell us about that. Did we lose him? Are you there?
Hey, sorry, Nick, cut out for a second. But yeah, look, since I've been in office, we've been fighting to shut down these gender mutilation clinics that are harming kids. There's no science or medicine to back up the prescription of these dangerous, powerful, life-altering drugs that are injected into these children's bodies, or irreversible surgeries that will forever harm these children and prevent them from enjoying the full spectrum of adulthood. How dare anyone tell these kids that God put them in the wrong body? We know he doesn't make mistakes. And so we've launched investigations. We've defended the state statute that banned these procedures. And in other trial court rulings, we've been granted access to these records. So we have inconsistent rulings from the trial courts that need to be resolved at the Court of Appeals. But, Nick, bigger than that, I'm proud to announce on your show for the first time that we are filing suit today against the Biden administration, who just handed down a rule that is a radical attempt to force hospitals to provide these kinds of life-altering mutilation surgeries. So this is what they can't get through Congress. The Biden administration is now doing by rule, and Missouri's filing suit today to put a stop to it.
All right, and finally, before we let you go, is there anything else? I mean, there's a lot of obviously going on, very, very important and consequential cases, including the one that you're filing today. But is there anything else that the people of Missouri need to be aware of?
Yeah, look, we're continuing to fight back against Biden's border chaos. We've got 3 lawsuits pending against the Biden administration's refusal to secure our southern border. It's resulted in more than 1,100 incidences of human trafficking, 1,500 fentanyl deaths in 1 year alone. Those are harms directly attributable to Biden's failures at the southern border. We just recently won the lawsuit that requires President Biden to finish building President Trump's border wall. He was commanded to do so by Congress. He refused. We took him to court and won, and we're looking to roll out new initiatives in the coming days and weeks that are intended to prevent this human trafficking of illegal aliens into and through the state of Missouri.
Attorney General Andrew Bailey, it's always good to hear from you, sir. Appreciate the update this morning.
Thanks, Nick. Always great to talk to you.
All right, have a great one. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I am Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. If you have roof damage and it's finally time to get that new roof, now is also a great time to go ahead and do those upgrades as well. Now, you can upgrade your vents to upgrading to impact-resistant shingles. Those upgrades, they can actually get you discounts from your insurance company. And if you want a roofing company that is going to be there to help you from start to finish and even actually help you through that insurance process, I recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. And the Pyramid team, they are not going to make you sign any kind of contract to work through that insurance process, by the way. And a lot of companies actually do that. But the Pyramid team, they want to just make things go that much smoother. So whether you do need a whole new roof or you want to schedule a free roof inspection so you can find out the health of your roof, go ahead and give Josh and the Pyramid Roofing Company team a call today. You can find all of that contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Well, the New York Times editorial board is they have outdone themselves. They are once again calling for Biden to step down. Now listen to this portion of their editorial. For more than a year, voters have made it unquestionably clear in surveys and interviews that they harbor significant doubts about Mr. Biden's physical and mental fitness for office. Mr. Biden has disregarded the concerns of those voters, his fellow citizens, and put the country at significant risk by continuing to insist that he is the best Democrat to defeat Mr. Trump. So they're arguing here that Joe Biden is putting the country in danger. And he's doing so, this is in the context of, for over a year, voters have been expressing these concerns, and he's ignoring them. What is just a gold star for the New York Times here in outdoing themselves is the fact that you have been one of the leading voices in telling those people who have been saying that for over a year that they're full of crap. If Biden is a danger to this country because he is ignoring what people have been saying over a year and a half, at least over a year and a half, within that period of time, the New York Times has also been saying that Joe Biden was fit for office. So then the New York Times is also a danger to this country, or has been for the last year and a half. The ability of these people to completely absolve themselves of any responsibility for what they created is breathtaking. They really are. The left is outdoing themselves this time around. Well, this is from the editorial board of the New York Times. Was there not a single person that put up their hand? They're like, this may sound, I don't know, this may not look real good on us because up until the last couple of weeks, we were part of what we're now criticizing as the problem. I mean, the New York Times isn't here. It's not like they're saying, well, we didn't know, which of course would be BS. And so that's why we've changed our position here. They are citing the fact that, and the reason that that Biden is a danger to this country is because he has for a year and a half ignored what voters have been saying. Well, so has the New York Times up until a couple of weeks ago. You just want or if you want, you have it served up right here, a demonstration of the danger that living in an echo chamber can create. Apparently, not a single person at the New York Times that was involved in this editorial, part of the editorial board, said, yeah, our argument here against Biden is also an argument against us. Our claim, the evidence that we provide that Biden is a danger to the country applies to us as well up until 2 weeks ago. There wasn't a single person. You want to talk about dangerous? The media is, unbeknownst to them apparently, laying out an argument as to why the New York Times itself is a danger to this country. Speaking of disinformation, yesterday, or the day before, what are we, Wednesday? It was Monday or Tuesday, talked about this 2025, Project 2025, that the Democrats are trying to use as a scary boogeyman. And the Biden campaign tweeted out, Google it. Oh, because Google, of course, is going to lead you straight to the facts. No, all you'll find are pieces that are filled with disinformation. And the disinformation is so consistent that the Project 2025 has laid out a list of, oh, by the way, so here's something that is claiming and it's not true. And here's why. So just to give you an idea, and we can get this posted so you can read through all of them. Well, number one, they're not affiliated with Trump. In fact, Trump has openly said some of this stuff he doesn't necessarily agree with. But instead, they're a coalition of more than 110 conservative groups advocating policy and personal recommendations. Number one myth versus fact. End of no-fault divorce. False. In fact, what they note is divorce is not even mentioned in the handbook. Their policy handbook, their wish list for what America could look like under a conservative president, divorce is not even mentioned. That one's just totally, completely made up. I know that's shocking. Another false claim, Project 2025, complete ban on abortions without exceptions. False. Mandate for Leadership calls for the government to comply with laws that prevent federal funding of abortion. It also calls for federal support for alternatives to abortion, including adoption. But it does not call for a complete ban on abortion. False claim that the project calls for a ban on contraceptives. Mandate for Leadership says absolutely nothing in its almost 1,000 pages about banning or even restricting contraceptions. Additional tax breaks for corporation and the 1%. This, they note, is misleading. There's a mandate for leadership, or Mandate for Leadership calls for lower taxes for all Americans to stimulate economic growth and put more money in Americans' pockets. Higher taxes for the working class. This, of course, false. Which, of course, just doesn't even make sense. When have conservative outlets ever called for tax increases? The idea that you're going to have 110 conservative groups say part of their wish list is to raise taxes? The Mandate for Leadership calls for lower taxes on all Americans. Individuals spend their money in more productive ways than the government does. Elimination of union worker protections. This disinformation spread by the media is also false. Mandate for Leadership presents different ideas about a conservative labor policy. It calls for combating the excesses of the deep state bloated federal employee union, which have ensured that federal employees keep their jobs even if they engage in illegal behavior or perform their job poorly. Raising the retirement age. That is false. Raising the retirement age is nowhere even mentioned or advocated for in Mandate for Leadership. Cut Social Security. False. Mandate for Leadership does not advocate cutting Social Security. As I noted, when these allegations are made in editorials or editorials that are presented as news stories, they never provide a link to the actual Mandate for Leadership showing you where it is that what they're claiming exists. And the reason for that is because it doesn't. Raise prescription drug prices. Yes. Some of this, again, common sense tells you it doesn't even make sense. You're going to have 110, or they're like, you know what? People don't pay enough for prescription drugs. We really need to change that. That allegation, of course, false. Mandate for Leadership offers proposals to lower drug prices through competition and innovation. There's a few others here, and some, by the way, which they note, that is true, and we want to make sure that you know it. This Project 2025, which is the latest conspiracy theories coming from the left. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs, routine maintenance schedule. That is so much more than just an oil change. The manufacturers of the vehicles, they actually have a maintenance schedule that isn't even necessarily repetitive. I mean, your oil changes and those things, of course, and having your tires rotated is recommended every so many thousand miles. But your vehicle will have, just throwing out random examples, potentially like at 44,000 miles, here's a thing you need to do along with this and this and this. And then at 77,000 miles and 120,000 miles, if you don't know what that is, A1 Custom Car Care, they have access to all of that information. They can find it out for you. That way, you, based off the manufacturer of the vehicle, can take those steps to make your vehicle hopefully last as long as possible by treating it in a manner that is recommended by the manufacturer. And that way, you get the most out of it. So that's something that you should think about next time you are at A1 Custom Car Care. Let them know that you want that information and ask them to keep you updated on it. They can do that when you bring it in, oil change. Hey, you're coming up on the 120,000. Just so you know, they recommend this, this, this. If you want to have it done, it's going to be that time soon. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs. The media is spreading, and the Democrats, disinformation, creating conspiracy theories about Project 2025, which is a wish list, if you will, of 110 conservative groups. It isn't a Trump campaign deal. And they make all sorts of allegations that are false, which, of course, is pretty par for the course for the Democrats. Now, some of the things that they claim are true, and in fact, Project 2025 wants people to know about it. One of them is eliminate the Department of Education. They say, yeah, that's true. We call for an end to the Department of Education. Since it was created, educational outcomes have not improved, and the American school system has increasingly fallen behind other countries. Giving more control back to the state and local governments and expanding school choice would improve educational outcomes for all Americans, especially poor kids. Some function of the department would be moved to other departments, including labor, justice, and commerce. So in other words, what's not working, let's get rid of it. What a horrible idea. End free and discounted school lunch programs. That's false. Mandate for Leadership advocates that the Food and Nutrition Service be moved from the Department of Ag to the Department of Health and Human Services. The mandate also condemns the Biden administration's withholding free lunch for poor kids unless the schools go woke. This is something that we saw the Springfield School District with the majority of the establishment people on the district board taking a knee to the Biden administration and agreeing to implement a lot of the gender fluidity crap in exchange for not having the Biden administration deny poor kids free breakfast and lunch. That's the compassion of the left. Ban African American and gender studies in all levels of education. False. In fact, African American studies and gender studies is never even mentioned. Again, some of this stuff isn't even taken out of context. It's just not even mentioned. Ban books and curriculum about slavery. There's nothing about banning books or curriculum for slavery in the platform. Increase Arctic drilling. They're like, yeah. That is true. Promote and expedite capital punishment. They say true. End marriage equality. False. Defund the FBI and Homeland Security. False. They go into details on some of this because some of it is a bit more nuanced. It's disinformation that is crafted out of taking certain things out of context. And so while many of their correcting the record factual bits of information here are straightforward because, again, it's stuff that's not even mentioned in the platform. Some of it, they go into some detail explaining the context of it. Ban Muslims from entering the country. Jeez. Increasingly, you can almost on a daily basis watch it occur. The hysterical disconnect from reality of the Democrat Party with the claims they make that are so easily disproven. I don't know the last time that Democrats have made a solid, reasonable argument that was based in truth. I can't remember the last time. Glenn Beck's coming up next. Talk with you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.